The Federal and Velevin Hypermarket jointly present the Thuthukudi Marathon 2024 to raise awareness on drug abuse. The event is co-presented by Edison Cardio Care Center, Tiruchendur, powered by L. Anand Jewelry and St. Mother Teresa Engineering College, Thuthukudi.
Hello and welcome. We are joined by one of India's sharpest economic brains, Mr. Krishnamurthy Subramanian, Executive Director, International Monetary Fund and former Chief Economic Advisor. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the Federal. Great to have you. So let me begin by asking you on how do you assess the current state of the Indian economy, India at 100, Viksit Bharat. What are the sectors the government got to be focusing on, and what's your outlook?
If you look at how India has grown post-COVID, at 7% plus growth with very strong macro fundamentals, we are the oasis of calm in otherwise global desert. So clearly we've done very well. Even if we want to compare the previous crisis around 2007-2008, the global financial crisis, we entered that crisis in very good health, but exited out becoming part of the fragile five. While here, we entered with growth declines because of a lot of the crony lending that happened, but we've exited, in very strong. So overall, the economy's strength actually is clearly there. In terms of the Viksit Bharat, in this book, India at 100, I estimate that India can be a $55 trillion economy if we grow at 8%. There are many growth examples that we can draw inspiration from. One of them is Japan. If you look at from 1970 to 1995, the Japanese economy grew from just 215 billion to 5.1 trillion, so more than 25 times, about 25 times. So India can draw inspiration from some such growth episodes to grow at 8%, and thereby one of the key aspects that I actually modeled here is that because of the significant reduction in inflation following the inflation targeting regime, the rate of depreciation of the rupee will be lower as well compared to the dollar, and that will have an impact on what's the size of the economy in dollar terms in 2047.
Full marks for the finance minister for the fiscal discipline and macroeconomic stability, but if you really look at the FDI numbers, it has plummeted. It's at a 5-year low, and if you see the private investment, it's also plummeted in the first quarter of this fiscal year. How do you respond?
Look, private investment, I think, if you go by the data in the economic survey, and I would strongly urge you, those of you who cover the economy to read the economic survey carefully. If you had read that carefully, possibly this observation that private investment has plummeted would not have been there, because if you look at the data, 2023 the private capex has grown, and this is using NSO data, has grown at about 20%. When the economy is growing at 8.2%, 2023 I think it grew at 7% odd. Private investment to grow at 20% is actually very significant. Even 2024, if you look at NSO data is not available, but the economic survey quotes the Axis Bank research data, and there as well private capex has grown at about 20%. So I don't know on what basis your question was about private investment having plummeted. Private investment actually is growing, but it needs to grow more.
Shifting focus to what Arvind Subramanian, whom we had an interview a couple of weeks back on the Federal, he said, let me point what exactly he said. He said there are risks in the government, risks in the economy which the government is not addressing. He points to 3 major risks: preferential treatment of national champions, arbitrary state action that unsettle investors, and supply chain vulnerability is crucial for export-oriented growth. How do you respond to this, sir?
I have been a firm believer that positive thinking is necessary for good outcomes, but negative thinking can oftentimes be sufficient for negative outcomes.
So other important factor in which the opposition keeps pressing the Modi government is the unemployment crisis. So the government too has...
It's not a crisis. This is one area where the negative narratives have run ahead of the reality. Let me quote you using the data. If you look at the CLEMS database, which is actually a high quality database, and I say this given the vantage point that I occupy at the International Monetary Fund, CLEMS database is basically used not only in India but across the world. Using the CLEMS database, the RBI report actually, and RBI is an independent institution that has assessed, over the last 10 years, about 12.5 crore jobs have been created, of which, even if you exclude the agriculture jobs, 9 crore jobs, in other words, 90 lakh jobs per year. So I again, on what data do you actually call it a crisis is something that is not clear to me. Yes, the emphasis on job creation is there, but there is a tendency in the media to oftentimes, portray these as binary narratives and focus on negatives. Just because the government is emphasizing on employment doesn't mean there hasn't been employment creation. If I'm as a student, if basically I got 80 marks out of 100, I was working towards, getting 90 out of 100, then you can't tell me, oh, you've scored, 40 out of 100, right? I'm from 80, I'm wanting to go to 90 out of 100.
I've been focusing on the RBI's consumer survey, which is coming in June this year, and there were clear indications of unemployment is a crisis, according to the survey.
No, I think if you look at the PLFS data, which is actually it's the PLFS data that gets into employment, post-COVID, whether it's the unemployment rate, whether it's the labor force participation ratio or the worker population ratio, all these have improved, have trended positively and actually are above pre-COVID levels. So again, I don't understand what is the quality of data that is being used to actually portray these negative narratives. I have no hesitation in saying if you look at high quality data, there has been good work on employment, but then more needs to be done. So whether it's you or other commentators who basically try to paint these negative narratives on employment do not have much basis.
The Federal and Velavan Hypermarket jointly present the Thuthukudi Marathon 2024 to raise awareness on drug abuse. The event is co-presented by Edison Cardio Care Center, Tiruchendur, powered by L. Anand Jewelry and Saint Mother Teresa Engineering College, Thuthukudi.